So I have told the story of how my channel started in a previous video from 2017, but I'd like to tell it again because I don't like my old videos, and I feel like I left out a few details. It all started in about early 2009, where I created my first alias, Superceptile97. The name came from a YouTuber I used to watch that made a lot of walkthroughs of Pokemon games, and his name was Super Skarmory. It's not really surprising that an 11-year-old ripped off a YouTuber he looked up to. Either way, it was then that I uploaded a screen recording of a remix that I made of Brine Cave from Pokemon Mystery Dungeon Explorers of Time and Darkness. This was done on a super old program that was essentially a port of the SNES game Mario Paint, but on the PC. It was called Mario Paint Composer. It was an extremely simple program where you only can play 5 notes at a time, you couldn't alter the length of the notes at all, and the only controls you really have are tempo and velocity. After having this channel for a while, I felt pretty guilty, mainly because I was a goody two-shoes and was also afraid of my mom catching me having a YouTube channel. So I deleted it, and that one remix became lost media. Years later, I did try to recreate it to the best of my ability from memory, and you can actually listen to it through an unlisted link in the description, if I remember to actually put it there. About a year later, I created another channel on February 15th, 2010, which is the one that you're watching this on now. This time, I still ripped off Super Skarmory, but I decided to go with my favorite Pokemon of the time, Garchomp. Except, I didn't name myself Great Garchomp, I named myself Great Gabite. Why? Because I was 12 years old and thought it would have been weird to name myself after a fully evolved Pokemon. I don't know, you can tell I overthought this. During that time, I didn't do much other than comment on random videos, and I'm sure some of these are pretty embarrassing, but let's face it, who hasn't said embarrassing stuff at the age of 12? Especially on the internet. Maybe some of you guys aren't as chronically online as I was. That summer in 2010, I got a cheap little camera because my mom was happy with my grades and wanted to reward me for them. And this sparked the idea of me wanting to be a YouTuber again. I was finally done with school and wanted to try it, so I grabbed a couple of crappy computer speakers, plugged them into my DS, and positioned my camera to try to get the game into the frame. And it looked and sounded absolutely terrible, as you would have guessed.
Okay.
After about 5 months of attempting to make Let's Plays but never finishing any of them, I gained about 40 subscribers. Likely because I was just subscribed to a bunch of people and they subscribed back. If you remember like follow for follow, back then on YouTube it was called sub for sub. I wanted to celebrate that number because I guess I couldn't wait for 50 subscribers, I really don't know. But I celebrated by remixing the Elite Four theme from Pokemon Black and White in Mario Paint. Only this time, I couldn't get a screen recorder to work, so I just recorded it with a camera. I've attempted to do more Let's Plays,
because you suck!
Wi-Fi battles, and even a tutorial.
You need to rename the original sound font into something like Soundset 4.
In February of 2011, I hit 50 subscribers. Once again, I tried to record a Mario Paint remix, but this time, I actually got a screen recorder to work. But I used my webcam to record the audio. Ow. Around this time, I was listening to other people's remixes of Pokemon music, and they sounded really good. They used actual instruments from the Pokemon games, and I wanted to find out how they did it. So I looked around and did some research, and found out about this program called FL Studio 9. Yeah, I know, I'm old. Whatever. I also wanted to figure out how to use MIDI files so that I can swap the instruments and make remixes that way, but I never figured out how to do that at the time, so I just recreated everything by ear. And technically that was like a blessing in disguise, because that really helped me train my transcribing skills and my composition skills. Back then, I didn't know how to balance instruments well. I also didn't even know how to fix the fact that the drums in the sound font were hard pan to the left, and I had no idea how to export MP3 files, so a lot of my very old stuff sounded and looked like this. From then on, I just kept making music instead of Let's Plays. There were some times where I tried to do Let's Playing videos, but they just fell flat because, once again, ADHD. I just wasn't diagnosed until I was like 25. I also decided to change my username because I got tired of my current one, so I decided to change it to the Japanese name for Blastoise, Kamex. Or Kamex. Some people say Kamex, some people say Carmex. I don't know. I was around 15 at the time, and I changed my name to that. It sounded cool at the time, I don't know. But now, I've been stuck with it ever since because, I don't know, I feel like if I were to rebrand now, it would completely just kill everything I've built over the last 10 years, so yeah, it looks like I'm stuck with it. Oh well. If I'm being honest, I wouldn't even know what to change it to, so I guess it doesn't really matter. Let's fast forward to about mid to late 2014. This was around the time I was making Pokemon Remix after Pokemon Remix and was having a lot of fun with it because my usual day consisted of being bored at school and doing homework. It was to the point where I was doing a full remix every 4 days. Granted, they were super simple, but I was really dedicated to it. There were a few remixes that did relatively well for someone with under 1,000 subs, but out of nowhere, one that like absolutely blew up was my remix of Zinnia. This was the remix that even got the attention of other Pokemon remixing musicians. Around this time, I even tried to livestream. It was an absolute mess, but it did have charm because of how makeshift it was. This was also around the time I was building a small cult following for my Pokemon Mystery Dungeon remixes. We even had memes surrounding my work. It was honestly pretty nice. In late 2015, I had recently graduated high school and discovered this game called Undertale. It had really good music, so I wanted to remix it alongside Pokemon. This was also around the time that I was reaching out to people and started to become friends with other musicians. The Undertale remixes did well, so you know what happens when something does well? You keep doing it. Duh. The motivation came from the fact that people loved what I made, which fueled the want to do more. I don't know, maybe that's the people pleaser in me, I really don't know. Though that got me a bit of weird attention from the Pokemon fans who felt betrayed that I dare acquire a new interest. I guess people really couldn't understand liking more than one game franchise, I really don't know. I was very new to all the attention I was getting, both good and bad, and I was 18 years old, so it was kinda hard for me to handle. Around this time, this was also during the rise of like commentary videos, so I was pretty intrigued by the commentary and gameplay scene at the time, where people recorded gameplay footage and just talked about stuff. It felt like it would have been a nice way for people to get to know me better instead of me just like putting out music, because I wanted to be seen more than just like a music making machine. It was kind of hard for me to think of topics to talk about that people actually cared for, so that didn't last very long. I've been trying again lately with the Cam Tangents channel. It's basically a side channel where I just do whatever the hell I want. I haven't really had much time to actually like put out more videos like that. I do have a lot of fun making them, but yeah. I was also not very amazing at games, so I didn't feel like gaming videos were the right move for me either. After a few years of Undertale remixes sprinkled with other stuff like Pokemon, One Shot, Splatoon, and so on, Toby Fox decided to just drop the first chapter of Deltarune in late 2018. Hilariously, I also missed the deadline to register for my college classes in fall of 2018, so I had all the time in the world to remix as much of the OST as I wanted. My mom was not very happy about that, but hey, you know what? It worked out in the long run. This caused an even bigger boom for my channel, because I was hard at work making a new remix weekly at the time. It also kind of felt like video game remixing was like a massive community and not just like centered around just Pokemon or like very like niche things. Like there was a lot of people who remixed video game music back then. It felt like a magical time. Anyway, let's just fast forward around early 2021. This was when Friday Night Funkin' was on my radar. Okay, I say that with disdain, but like it's not, I'm just joking. Honestly, personally for me, it wasn't that terrible. Mainly because I wasn't the target for angry people on Twitter. But anyway, it was insanely overwhelming how much attention I got from this, but luckily I've already had some experience with this sort of thing, like being a public figure and all, so I handled it in a way that didn't cause any issues. Thank God. This was also around the time I dabbled more with making original music, because the great thing about FNF was that it encouraged people to make original music, and a lot of people were actually more willing to give it a chance, as long as it had Boyfriend's silly little beat boops, which was honestly really nice and helped me practice my composition skills a lot, aside from like, you know, doing commissions and stuff. A year later, I slowed down quite a bit because I was burnt out on being a public figure, and honestly, that could be like an entire video on its own. But anyway, I just decided to take it easy. When I got out of my FNF-induced hyperfixation, it felt like the landscape has changed in the video game remixing world. I'm not sure if maybe this is just my narrow view of it all, but it almost feels like remixing as a whole was just not where it used to be like 5 years ago. And nowadays, people have shifted to original songs based on video games, rather than direct remixes and covers of video game soundtracks. This is called nerdcore, and I'd love to get into it, but the only thing really holding me back is writing lyrics. I just don't think I can write something meaningful and creative. So because of this, it seems like I'll be staying in my lane of OST remixes and original music for now. Taking it easy made my channel decline quite a bit, but I don't really see it like a bad thing though, mainly because a smaller amount of attention is much less overwhelming, and it feels nice that things are more laid back now. All of last year, 2024, I've been working on FNF vs. Retro Part 2, which has a lot of songs that I've composed for it. While this has been a long journey with its ups and downs, it's far from over yet, and I really hope you'll enjoy what's to come. For those who have stayed as long as they have, thank you. I know there's some of you out there who have told me that you've been here for like ages. Like some have told me they've been here for like 10 years, and honestly, I appreciate that a lot. And for those who are new, well, welcome. I hope you enjoy what I have in store for you, and also feel free to look around because there's a lot of history on this channel. Thank you for listening, and I hope to see you again someday.